today I'm here to bring you a non-spoiler review of the Proustopia Book Club Pick of the Month for the month of May, and this month we are working with Disney Book Group. But the book that we are reading this month is The Trials of Apollo, The Burning Maze by Rick Riordan, and oh my goodness guys, this is the third book in the Trials of Apollo series, and yes, this is a non-spoiler review, but also I am no longer here. I have been emotionally destroyed by this book. This is probably one of my favorite, probably top two of Rick Riordan's series. The Trials of Apollo is shaping up to be an incredible series, and I feel like this book brought it to even a next level area. Emotionally, plot-wise, just everything. If you guys aren't familiar, The Trials of Apollo is an amazing series. It follows our main character, you guessed it, Apollo, who is currently being punished by Zeus, and he was basically cast out of Olympus and turned into a kind of a puny teenager named Lester. And at the start of the series, he basically has to befriend other demigods to help him on his quest to basically solve the Oracle problem. This novel has both Greek and Roman influences, with the main centered villains being risen again Roman emperors, which is super cool. So there is an element of like true history through this novel as well, with mythology, which is something that I just think is great. As this is the third book in the series, I am going to try to be careful to be as non-spoiler as possible, but do keep in mind that like I am going to reference some things that happened in the first two books. This was just an incredible middle novel to the series. I mean, to say that Rick Riordan raised the emotional stakes of this book is like understating it. I'm still kind of in shock of what occurred throughout this story, and I'm honestly curious to see how it's going to play out in the next book, because I'm not quite sure how I'm going to wait, because it was just so good. The thing about the Trials of Apollo series that I just feel like is so great, and what Rick Riordan does so well, is that he balances so many things that make this book just so incredible. First and foremost, there's so many cameos of characters that we love from previous series, and they're brought in not just like randomly. Their cameos make a lot of sense, and when they appear, we get to basically dive a little more into their own character complexities and also the consequences of what was occurring in the last couple of books. You really got to see in this series, I mean, the emotional fallout of going through an intense conflict that we saw in the Heroes of Olympus, really explored through two characters, both Piper and Jason, in this story, and it is emotional and it is dark and it is just everything. Another element to this series and this book particular that Rick Riordan does so well is that he brings in elements of humor like perfectly. Apollo as our character is incredibly dynamic, and he offers both emotional viewpoints and humorous viewpoints. Because he is a god, he's basically encountering a lot of human activities for the first time as a mere mortal, and his perspective on all of that is usually always very, very funny. And also just his hot takes on characters and interactions and his reminiscing on past memories. It's also really, really funny and adds a lot to the story. But we also get to see Apollo throughout this series basically grow more and more human and gain a lot more empathy for the demigods that he's faced in the past, but also what he's put demigods throughout all of Rick Riordan's books. The quest, the loss, the fear, the friendship, everything he's gaining a lot more perspective on, and therefore is becoming a lot more human. And we see him make decisions and sacrifices for the people around him that ultimately we know for a fact he would not do if he wasn't turned into a human, and we didn't see him with these interactions. Rick Riordan also introduces so many amazing new characters to this as well. We obviously get some great cameos of past characters that we love, but we also get characters like Meg, who is by far and away top 5 one of my favorite Rick Riordan characters. She's this spunky 12-year-old who literally does not give two craps about anything. She will fight whomever is in her way. She's also a child who had a very complicated and hard childhood, and we get to see her not only have to face that emotionally, but get support from people who actually care about her, and that is really something to behold. It adds such a rich and complex emotional story arc that you just get to see throughout this series. Moving on more specifics about this book overall, I mean, to say that this book raised the stakes both plot-wise, character-wise, again, is an understatement. This book was action-packed from page 1. We got introduced to a whole new emperor who was utterly terrifying and had a very interesting historical background, which was great to delve into, and I feel like Rick Riordan covered it super well. Also, I thought the quests finally had stakes. There was true mourning, love, loss that that occurred in this novel, which we don't often get both in YA or middle grade. The level of stakes that Rick Riordan created in this book, I feel like is gonna be carried over into all of his later books, because honestly, I feel like this book changed the game in a lot of ways, and I'm still personally emotionally reeling from it. I also love the oracle aspect of this novel. I mean, I just feel like prophecy has always been very centered to a lot of his other novels. I mean, they kind of start the journey, but it's very much central throughout this entire book series. There's always a new prophecy, there's always a new mystery to unravel, there's always a new oracle to be found, and there's always a new fate that's going to be basically like unraveled or destroyed or created. And overall, I just thought it was a really interesting element to have central to the story. I also really liked how Rick Riordan combined both the Roman and Greek aspects of both of his past series together. I mean, Apollo is present both in Greece and Rome, depending on the historical time period. So I like that we have both of those elements explored, and it's obviously especially apparent in the villains of this novel. And it's just, it's dark. Overall, I would say this book was amazing. I'd say it's probably my favorite book of the series so far. It broke my heart, don't get me wrong, but I also felt like it really brought this series to a whole new level, and also Rick Riordan's like plot game to a whole new level. And I can't wait to see how the next books unravel. This is a story that's full of humor, adventure, but also it has so much emotional stake as well. I mean, we see people grow, we see people learn, we see people hurt, we see people mourn, we see people go through emotional trauma and face it and find support in their friend groups or their family groups. I guess what I'm trying to say, I feel like for the first time, Rick Riordan's making his characters face some of the emotional consequences of some of the horrors that they've seen at such a young age, and I thought it was a really good novel. At the end of the day, I would highly recommend this book and this series. I'm a huge fan of it, obviously. I ultimately gave this book a 4.5 out of 5 stars. It was so good, and everyone just needs to read it. Okay guys, that is my non-spoiler review of The Burning Maze by Rick Riordan. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you soon with another video soon. Goodbye!